And thank you for that, Elizabeth. That was really interesting, as I'm sure were the other presentations, but unfortunately, I don't speak German, so I can't follow. But I hope that many people on the call will have some English and hopefully be able to follow what I'm going to tell you. So I work for a very large trade union in Ireland. It's the largest, well, it's very large in an Irish context because Ireland is a small country. But the union is called SIPTU, and it's a general union. So it has lots of different categories, and one of the categories is an arts and culture sector. And so within that arts and culture sector, we represent a film crew, film construction crew, and then Irish Equity, the actors piece is in there as well. So for the purpose of this discussion, I'm just going to talk about film crew. And I do not include film construction crew because they're organized a little bit differently. Their agreements are a little bit different. So film crew, and I define that as being everybody who's behind the camera, who's not involved in construction. So I started working in the arts and culture sector in 2013. I have been working for the union since 2000, but in 2013 I was transferred into the arts and culture sector. I had no experience in the arts and culture sector, none whatsoever, didn't understand it, didn't know anything about intellectual property or didn't know anything about filmmaking. But I did bring a lot of industrial collective bargaining experience with me because my previous jobs in the union had been doing the big collective bargaining agreements with large numbers of workers, mainly in a kind of a male dominated and industrial setting. So that's the experience that I had when I came to the arts and culture sector. And the film crew membership was in disarray. We had hardly nobody left in the union. We had less than 100 members, and a lot of different small groups had started to form themselves within the filmmaking sector, just filling that space that the union had previously been in. Now, they didn't have any collective bargaining licenses, and they were all self-interest groups. And some of them were quite hostile to each other and to producers, and it was a very difficult environment for people to work with. So we decided to focus on trying to reorganize the crew. And it was a very difficult environment, but we set out to do a number of things, is to try to, as well as trying to access crew and talk to crew, we started having conversations with producers because producers were having some difficulties as well with all of these different fractions and nobody was united, and the industry itself was suffering, and it was actually getting a bad international reputation as well. So we set about rebuilding the relationships with the producers, with the industry, and accessing crew on set, trying to meet crew on set, etc. And eventually we managed to get a very small number of people to come to a meeting. So it was about 30 or 35 people came to a meeting. But it was a broad cross section of film crew, camera people, makeup people, design people, sound technicians, etc., art department as well. And from amongst that, we continued to sort of outreach from that, and we brought those people together, had a good and frank discussion with them about their own situation and about how they were very disappointed in the union anyway because things had fallen apart. So we had to rebuild some of those bridges and identify the issues that were of real importance to them as crew, which, as it turned out, were different issues to what I thought was important. So that was a real learning experience for me. And we identified a number of leaders from that group who undertook then to speak to other people. And eventually we were able to get one person identified across most of the disciplines within the crew. And we formed a very big committee. We had about 30 or 35 people on this committee, where we would meet to discuss everything and how we would move forward. And we elected from that committee a group of about 6 people who would come with the union officials to talk to the employers and to try to start to negotiate an agreement with the employers. So the employers, they did want an agreement because it's very, Ireland depends a lot on incoming productions. We get a lot of productions come from America and from Canada and from the UK. And especially with the Americans and the Canadians, they want to see what the contracts are, and they want to know that their investment is safe and that there's not going to be any industrial disputes, and is they prefer a collective bargaining agreement that they can rely on. So the producers wanted it, and we wanted it, and the crew wanted it, but it took a long time to do it. It took us 2.5 years, right, to get from start to finish. So it takes a lot of persistence. The collective agreement covers everything. It covers pay for the next 3 years. There's a minimum rate of pay for every single discipline. And that was difficult because some people work above the minimum, but we were trying to negotiate minimum, so we had to find a way to manage that situation. And we have an oversight working group to monitor that situation. So it covers pay for the next 3 years. Pay is related to the size of the budget. It covers the hours of work, it covers public holidays, rest periods, it covers pension, it covers night work, overtime, travel, how you travel, what you get paid for traveling. It covers accommodation when traveling, and it also covers a strategic part where we will have to meet with the employers twice a year to look at the big strategic industries in the industry and not the terms and conditions, just to see how the industry is moving and what we need to do together to keep the industry in a stable setting. And it also contains a work-life balance clause that commits us all to putting a working group together to make recommendations to the crew on how we can have a work-life balance policy operate in the film industry. Most of the members think that it can't be done. I believe that it can be done, and that we should start it as a trial and let people opt into it if they want to work maybe a half-time week or to job share or to do something like that. So that's something that we'll be working out this year and hopefully rolling out by the end of the year. But it took a lot of collaboration. A couple of lessons that we learned from this is that it's very difficult for the union to do it on its own, right? You have to collaborate with other organizations. I mean, we had partnership arrangements, for example, with Screen Skills Ireland. They're the organization the government organization that provide training in the screen industry. So we did some training. We devised some training and helped the crew to devise some training and brought these Screen Skills Ireland closer to the crew so that what they were offering had a more realistic impact on crew skills. We had some partnerships with the film board so the film board could understand the difficulties in the industry. We talked to the government, to their taxation people, and to the people who are responsible for the labour court and industrial relations, and we got some good changes in the system. So if you have an unresolved dispute with a producer now, when the production comes to an end, the producer will not get the last piece of their tax incentive money unless the dispute is resolved. And that gave us a lot of leverage with the producers, and also dealings with the Arts Council, because a lot of our members work in the live performance sector as well. And we managed to get the Arts Council to agree a policy whereby there is a link to funding. There's a link between funding and the terms and conditions for artists. So this is not in the audiovisual collective bargaining agreement, but it's something that we did as part of the organising of crews. So the Arts Council previously, they fund all of the live performance sector, but they weren't interested in terms and conditions. They said it's not their business. But after about 2 years, we got them to agree that it is their business. And now there's a direct relationship between a good contract for the technician or the artist and your ability to be able to apply for funding with the Arts Council. So it takes political work, it takes working with the other resource organisations, it takes a very high level of commitment. It's time, and meetings, lots of conversations, to build that trust relationship with the crew and to build that trust relationship with the employers, because you can't negotiate with yourself, you have to prepare the other side to engage with you as well. So that's it. As I say, it took about 2.5 years. It was very slow, very difficult, but we did get there. And the agreement is in implemented now since the 1st of January this year. And as I say, we have a small working group to monitor the implementation. So if there are difficulties and things are being interpreted differently, it can be referred to this monitoring group and we'll make the decision. And if we can't decide as the monitoring group, then we use the dispute resolution procedures that are in the agreement. So it provides stability and for the industry and stability for the members.